Hey everybody, welcome back. And we are now going to try to practice a little bit of data modeling and a little bit of process modeling using three real-world examples. So the first one is going to be ordering pizza. We went over in the previous video some various data types and some built-in operators. We are going to be making use of those, so if you're confused, please feel free to go back to that video. We do a pretty okay description of like a general introduction to those. There will also be some stuff related to eloquent JavaScript later on, which does provide an excellent basis for a lot of these concepts. For now, though, we're just going to be operating off of that every programming language ever video. So let's talk about some variables associated with ordering pizza. Perhaps we could say variable phone number, and the phone number could be the pizza place's phone number that we're going to order from. So let's say 757-555-1234. So that's the phone number of the pizza shop. And we've saved it as a number. We could definitely also save it as a string. It's one of those where it doesn't really matter. What matters is consistency. So let's save it as a number for now. Actually, no, let's save it as a string so we can format it a little bit. So there's our string for the phone number. And we'd also say name of pizza place. That could be a string. We could say that the name of the pizza place is, I don't want to say Tony's, but I'm going to say Tony's just because I grew up around a place called Tony's. It was pretty good pizza. Name of the pizza place, maybe we could say something like variable number of friends ordering. Let's say it's 4. So we got 4 friends. We want to order some pizza from a place called Tony's with a phone number of, that. Let's see, something else. Let's say variable toppings. And toppings we're going to set equal to a list. So toppings is going to be a list of toppings. And let's say we've got cheese, peppers, onions, and one more. Pepperoni. Okay, so we've got our list of toppings. And let's say we need one more thing. We need a Boolean value. So a Boolean value would be something that's going to be either true or false, if you remember from the data type section. And so something that could be a couple Boolean variables would be, one could be something like, is open. So is the pizza place open? And then another one could be are delivering. And we'll say that's also equal to true. Now what we're going to do with these variables is, now that we've represented the idea of the pizza place in some form of data, we have very loosely modeled the idea of ordering pizza using a programming language. The other side of data modeling is process modeling. And the process modeling would be things like actually ordering the pizza, or delivering the pizza, or making the pizza, or eating the pizza, dividing the pizza up. All of these things could be processes. And it's like, how do I know what process or data to model or how to do it? It's going to vary, and it's going to come with practice. So for now, let's do a couple of very simple examples. When we get to the looping section, we are going to introduce a new concept, basically how to access individual elements of a list, but hopefully that won't be too daunting. And then for the functions, we're going to do a very, very simple function. Input and output we're going to leave alone for now. So for branching, let's come up with a simple example. And the example for this is going to be, if they are open, we will order pizza. So cool. What I've done here is something called pseudo code. And pseudo code is an excellent way to describe what your code is going to do before you actually write it. I would highly suggest getting into this habit as soon as you possibly can, but at the same time, you're going to want to take a lot of what people tell you when you're learning programming at the beginning with a grain of salt. There are infinite ways to learn it and infinite resources to help you do so. So if somebody presents something that doesn't seem like it's going to work for you, and that's the only time you've ever heard it, chances are it doesn't matter. If you hear it over and over again, it might be the case that it's something you need to face. So if they are open, so we have a variable here, is open, and it describes whether the pizza place is open or if it's closed. So let's go ahead and make our branching statement here using an if statement. We'll say if is open is equal to true, and that's how we write that with the triple equal sign. It's going to compare the value here with the value here. If they're the same, it's going to have this entire expression evaluate to true. So if they are open, we will order pizza. Now, you see how I just wrapped the edges of my if statement around this piece of pseudocode? You do not need to do that. You want to keep in mind that comments never actually run, so we don't really need to do what I just did, but it can be pleasing to look at pseudocode for each line of code. So these two lines basically mirror each other. If they are open is the same as if is open is equal to true. And then we will order pizza, and this is where it's kind of like, well, how do we say that? When in doubt, console.log at the beginning. So we'll console.log, we will order pizza. So here's a statement that branches into this or not based on the value of is open. So for the first thing we're going to do, we're going to run it and we're going to console.log we will order pizza because they're open. Now on line 11, if I change the value of this to false, and you want to consider that all of this code reruns each time we do it. So each time that we change something up here and hit run again, it alters what we did previously. We're not really going to save anything, or we don't have what's called persistence. Later on we'll get it, but for now we don't have it. So we need to change this manually. And we'll say variable is open is equal to false. So if we run this, we're not going to see anything. Or we might see undefined, but no. So we don't see anything. And that's because is open is not equal to true. And if they're not open, we're not going to order pizza. So let's change this back to true so that it says we will order pizza. And now we're going to loop. So one of the things that we have not introduced yet is if we have a list, and we have a list called toppings here, one of the things that we can do is we can say access the first element of our toppings list. And what we mean by that is that we don't want to talk about the entire toppings list. We just want the first element of that list. So real quick, what we mean when we say access is, let's say I wanted a console.log number, let's just say is open. So we console.log that, we're accessing the entire variable all at once. So it says we will order pizza because this part is still running, and then we're console.logging is open, so it just says true. Now if we were to console.log toppings, we can list all of the toppings all at once. The issue there is that we might not want all of them, or we might want to access them one at a time, which is what we're up to, or many other situations. We might want to access only one of them. And so what we can do is, sorry, I have a cold, so I apologize for all the sniffling, but console.log toppings, we can actually access an individual value by putting square brackets here and then accessing a number value. The number values will go from 0, which is going to be the first element, up to whatever the length of the list is, minus 1. And if you think about that for long enough, it actually makes sense, because this will be 0, this will be 1, this will be 2, and this will be 3. The entire length of the list is 4, and the last value is at 3. So that's always going to mean that the last value is at the length minus 1 in terms of the value of the index. And that's what we call these. At index 0 is cheese, index 1 is pepper, index 2 is onions, index 3 is pepperoni. So here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to console.log the first topping. And if we run this, we're going to see cheese. Excellent. Now, what we want to be able to do, so we just did that. We accessed the first element of our toppings list. But we're talking about looping. So what we want to do is we want to loop over our list of toppings. And let's just say tell the person. So we called them, we're on the phone with them, we want to list the toppings that we want. And so if you're just a person doing this, you may have a list written next to you and you would just read the list. So that's essentially what we're doing. We're getting the program to read our list. So the first thing we need to do is set up a loop that goes from 0 to the length of the array minus 1. Now the reason that we're doing that is because we just defined that if we can access the elements by a numerical index, which we can, and we want that numerical index to change from 0 to 1 to 2 and then 3, we can actually set up a while loop with a variable that'll help us move that variable from 0 to the length of the array minus 1. First thing we'll need is create, well, the second thing, create an index variable, start it at 0. And the reason we start it at 0 is because that's where the beginning of the array is. So we'll say index is equal to 0, and then set up a loop that goes from 0 to the length of the array minus 1. That's going to be our while statement. The while statement is going to have a body that'll go here on line 26, and we'll just say log current value in list to console. So while, and here's where we're going to describe how the index is going to stop. So we need the index to stop, which is to say to stop going from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, when the index is less than, we want this to continue to go when the index is less than the array.length. If the index is ever equal to the array length, we can see that we're not really in the array anymore. If it says 0, it's at 1, 2, 3. If it ever gets to 4, which is the length of this array, we're not actually inside the array anymore. We're outside of it. So if that's the case, we want our while loop to stop. So far, we've done everything that we need to get things going. We're going to console.log. Oh, and not the array, right? The array was misspeaking. We want toppings. The name of our list is toppings, so the toppings.length will give us the length of the toppings list, and is provided that the index stays lower than that, we're still going to be in good shape, and we want this to keep running, which it will. So if we console.log toppings at index, that's going to log whatever value is inside of the toppings list at whatever index the value of index has made it to. Now when I say whatever the value it's made it to, if you're looking at this, you might notice that if we were to run this, you'd get an infinite loop. It actually would never stop because the index will never not be less than the toppings length. If it just starts at 0 and it just keeps staying at 0 and we just keep logging it, it would log cheese for forever and then it would break. So in addition to logging the current value in the list of the console, we need to increment the index, which is to say we need to change the value of the index from what it was to what it was plus 1. And that's going to be something quite simple. We're going to say index, and this is reassigning a value, or reassigning a variable. So index is equal to index, and the value here is going to be whatever it is before this operation happens, plus 1. So whatever it was before the operation, plus 1 is going to be the reset value of index. So now that we run this, it's going to say we will order pizza, and then it's going to list all the toppings out in order. Cheese, pepper, onions, pepperoni. And then it says 4. And the reason that it says 4 is mildly irritating and complicated to explain, so don't worry about it. It's not really something that matters too much. And yeah, just not something that we're going to go into. So now that we have that, we have two relatively simple processes that we've modeled and a little bit of data. For now, I think this is probably it. This is probably all we're going to do for now. We've set up some variables that are related to a pizza place. We've created a branching situation. We've created an array, or sorry, a loop that's going to iterate, or that's what we call it, to loop over, to iterate over our toppings list and log all the toppings to the console. So for now, we are going to end this video. I hope you got some enjoyment out of it, or if you didn't, I hope you realized that you are too advanced for it and moved on. There are going to be 2 more that are very simple like this video, and then we're going to move on to the eloquent JavaScript, and then after that, at any point, you can always feel free to move on to the course. But with that, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you in the next one.